in life, there's always a price to pay and there are no discount. In this particular situation, yes, you're chasing the 50K profit, but you're going to lose out on the $10 million deal you could have done. And that's exactly what happened.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Listen, if you're an avid listener of the show, if you're getting good value, do me a little favor, leave us a rating and a review. We want to hear from you. I want to hear what you love about the show, but also we're open to any feedback, any honest feedback that helps us work, helps the show work harder for your investing goals. And listen, if this is your first time listening to the show, or you're a listener, but you haven't done so yet for some reason, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Ola Dantis. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button today. Now, Ola Dantis is the founder and CEO of Dwellynn.com, a multifamily investment syndication firm that has successfully sourced deals of over $40 million by working closely with sellers and with apartment syndicators across the country. Now, though Ola has only lived in the U.S. for a few short years, he has successfully closed deals in excess of $15 million. Now, he continues to exceed investors' returns, building upon his success in the real estate investing space. Let's welcome to the show, Ola Dantis.
John, you're absolute legend. I wish my wife was here so she can hear that introduction. Thank you so much.
I love it, man. Listen, those intros are always great, right? Sometimes we have to read our bios and our intros to remind ourselves of what we've done and accomplished. So I went over that in, just a couple lines, really. But why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of the gaps in your background?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm a full-time investor now. So for those who are crazy to actually do this for a living, that's what I'm doing right now. So huge for me, different. Also own a construction company with intention of going into full ground up construction. But of course, like anything or like any smart investor, we're trying to start small from the bottom up, essentially trying to vertically integrate the firm, Dwellynn from kind of construction. Of course, we're already doing, asset management / investments. Then of course, we want to go into property management as well in the future. So we're just kind of starting small. There's a method to the madness and kind of growing the firm organically, even though we've been aggressive in some of our efforts, but that's kind of what I've been doing, and looking to kind of dive into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, listen, and we've known each other for a number of years now. When I first met you, you were based in Baltimore. You're now in Houston. Talk to us about kind of your geographic journey, right? Coming over from, I believe, the UK, moving to Baltimore, now being in Houston.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've been on the show before, John. So
Definitely.
For those who will heard the first episode, you can maybe go back and listen to that. But I'll kind of go really fast again. So, was born in Nigeria, West Africa, for those who know where that is. Moved to the UK when I was, 16, did my education, first degree medical school, medical science, then did my master's degree in business school. I was reading too much economist at the time, so I wanted to go back and change the world, go back to Nigeria, got an uppercut. I don't think the country wanted my changes. My wife at the time wanted to move to the US, and she said, "Hey, do you want to try the US?" I was like, "Yeah, I've heard it's a great place." So we came to the US, and it's been almost 10 years now, believe it or not. And I always say this for anybody who wants to listen. I've lived on 3 continents. This is the best one. I love this country. Of course, just like every location in the world, there's going to be flaws, but believe me, I've lived on 3 continents. This is the best one. Kind of moved to the US, got a job like, most people, living the 9-to-5 life, realized this is kind of cool, but there could be something better out there. So as I was pondering that, I always like to tell the story because every time you listen to some of this podcast and, the guest comes on and there's this person with, gazillion units and, is this high or big person. And sometimes listeners don't really make that connection. Like, hey, how did you get from, literally 0 units to X amount of units? So I really like to make that connection for listeners, right? So just kind of when I was pondering that thought of like, hey, what do I want to do? I really have a good job. My wife has, my then fiance, now wife, had a good job. We were ironically at the time living in an apartment, probably was like a 300 unit at the time in Maryland at the time. And, I was kind of like thinking of what to do next. And a friend of mine, this is the key, pay attention, called me. I'm a friend of mine in the UK and say, hey, Ola, you're very good with business. You're very good at reorganizing business. You're a consultant. You're very smart. Can you please meet me in Dubai and help me with my business? And, spend some time in the hotel there and just kind of, go through my business. Now, at the time, I didn't know this, but what we ended up doing was a mastermind. Of course, before I jumped on the plane, I did what every smart man does. Prayed about it, and I asked my wife, like, hey, my friend called me. I mean, this was 6-7 years ago, before the pandemic, before Zoom, all that kind of stuff. So she was like, hey, can you guys Skype? Can you guys, why do you have to go all the way there? Again, pay attention. I'm saying this for anybody who's listening. Like, in life, you're not gonna get like a very overt signal, right? You're not gonna get people say, oh, I want to be successful, I want to do more, I want to, but you're not gonna get like somebody is gonna like put in front of you, like, if you go for this conference, you're going to be successful. Like, if you read this book, like, your life would change. Like that, it never happens that way, right? It could happen in a very nuanced way. Like somebody calls you and say, hey, you want to come with me to this seminar? You're like, I don't want to go to those seminars. It's all fake. Like, just pay attention to your life, right? For those who are really looking to change it, like, it might just be like a very nuanced signal. Anyway, for me, that was the call. I could have said, no, I don't want to meet you. I'm going to continue living my life. Probably I wouldn't be on this podcast. Maybe nothing would have changed, but I took a chance and I took that trip, right? For anyone who's still paying attention, I actually paid for my own plane ticket, believe it or not, different conversation. Got to Dubai, not to anybody's surprise, my friend's business is a property investing business in the UK. And he actually just gets like, church buildings for pastors. I know, whoever thought, but that's what he was doing. And as I kind of helped him with his business, I was like, oh, this is rather fascinating. Maybe I could do this, when I get back to the US, right? But I don't know anything about what real estate is. Like, I don't know what this thing is, right? But what I always tell people is we forget. Like my parents, like, had to write a letter and then take that letter and go to a post office. And then that it takes like 3 weeks to get to wherever. Like, we can text, like, we have Google, like, we have Amazon. Like, we almost don't have an excuse to not do well if we want to do well in a country like America. Like, it's just like a fact, right? But some might go, oh, yeah, but, you don't know where I'm from. And no. We have all the tools. Like, you can literally send a DM to Taylor Swift on Instagram. I know that's ridiculous, but like our parents couldn't do that stuff. Like, there was no medium to do that, right? So going back to what I was saying, I didn't know anything about real estate, right? But Google did. Google does. I didn't know any books about multifamily or what multifamily was even called at that time in my timeline. But Amazon did, right? So when I got back from Dubai, got back home to Maryland, that's what I did. I went to my best friend, Google, went to my other best friend, Amazon, real estate, right? This is for those about to start out. This is not for the girl or guy that has 50,000 units, obviously. This message is for somebody that knows nothing about real estate, which is fine. All of us knew nothing about it when we started, right? So started looking at books. When I was doing my Googling, stumbled upon Bigger Pockets. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. A place where everybody just wants to talk about real estate all day, every day. So what did I do for at least 3 months? I was just a voyeur. I was just lurking, just reading about people's stories. Like, oh, I'm like, okay, this guy can do it. I can do it. 4 months later, I bought my first duplex, right? So again, for anybody that is trying to act this, that's what you do. And I don't want to go all over the place, but we have a construction company. I'm also trying to act that business. Like, there's a method. You just have to pay attention, invest the time, find that method, and execute, right?
Yeah, Ola, I love what you said, man. You gave a really good gem, and I thought you did a great job making sure people paid attention to it as well, right? You talked about, first of all, your friend calling you, asking you, one, giving you credit, and saying, hey, you're good at business, you're good at consulting. Why don't you come out here and help me with my business? You fly out to Dubai, help them with that real estate business, and then the light bulb goes off for you to say, you know what? Why don't I do this when I get back home? You go home, you start educating yourself on real estate using Google, Amazon, you find bigger pockets, spend a lot of time there, and then ultimately you make your first investment. The insight for me, though, is what you said, right? You took action. That friend called you. You very easily could have said no. It was completely, not convenient for you, right? It's in Dubai. You got to fly. He wants you to buy your own plane ticket. Like most people would have said, no, tell me what your problem is, and maybe I can help you over the phone, or maybe I could put together a presentation or something like that, but I'm not going to come fly out there, right? And you did. And you said that everyone kind of faces different scenarios like this. And I want everyone to think about themselves, right? What situations did you have an opportunity that you didn't see as an opportunity, so you dismissed it? And it's not to live in the past, it's just so that you can open your mind and say yes to the opportunities that can move you forward, whether it's attending a conference, whether it's being a guest at an event, whether it's speaking on a podcast like this, because you never know where those relationships will form and where they will take you. And for me, it's exactly what you're talking about, because it was recognizing that I wanted to get into real estate, recognizing I had no clue how to get into real estate. So I started going to meetups and going to RIA events. And then from the people at those events, they would go to conferences. So they're like, hey, you should come to this conference. I'm like, maybe I should go to this conference. And then you're at the conference and they're like, hey, you should do your own conference. And I'm like, hey, yeah, maybe I should do my own conference, right? And you go down this pathway. And I'm not saying you need to do that, but what I am saying is that we all face opportunities that can change our lives, but most of the time we don't see them as opportunities. They're dressed up in disguise as work, and most people don't want to put in that kind of work. So take me back to that moment real quick, because I do think this is a very critical moment in your story and your journey. What made you say yes? I mean, why didn't you say, hey, man, really love our relationship, but no, I'm married. I got my wife here. You want me to fly to do it? And how long were you there? Was it like a quick trip or a week? Like,
Yeah,
how long were you there?
5 days, something like
5
that.
days.
Five
So you
days.
go out for
Yeah.
5 days. Like, what made you say yes to this?
I mean, no one has actually asked me that question before, John. Like, that's a good question. Um, I think for me, I said yes because one, I have a lot of respect for this friend. Two, he wasn't a joker. So he's not gonna call me like, hey, let's just go, gyrate and go some, no, this is like a serious person, right? So for him to like call me and he's a very close friend to say that, it wasn't like this is serious, right? For me, it was an opportunity to just learn about something that I just had no idea about. I mean, this guy was getting spaces for churches, like I don't even see that on Bigger Pockets today, let alone 6, 7 years ago, right? So I was like, this is kind of intriguing. So I think for me, it was more of like the intellectual curiosity of, oh, yeah, ticket, whatever, $800 and whatever it was, yeah, just do it. I think for me, was just more just curiosity, I guess.
No, I love it. And I think that's the key thing, is that, curiosity can take us very far if we're curious about the things that can impact our lives, right? And also those relationships. If you trust and respect that person on the other end, you're more willing to do those things. And just like, I kind of was quick with the conference thing, but the person who, introduced me to that thought and concept was a speaker. She was the person who ran the meetup. She was going to this conference, said, hey, you should come out. I said, oh, maybe I should. And then as we were hanging out at that conference, she was like, man, I'd love to bring something like this to Chicago. And I'm like, well, you know what? I was doing marketing and events for my day job. So I'm like, well, I know how to put together events. Maybe we could work together on it. So it all starts with saying yes to something where you don't really know where it's going to go. And then that opens up the doors to a lot of opportunities. So I love that you shared that. Oh, let's fast forward a little bit of your journey, right? So you get that 2-unit property. At some point, you decide multifamily investing is where you want to focus. Talk to us about kind of your early multifamily deals.
Yeah, again, for those, really, really taking notes here. As much as I like to say this was like a very, straight path, just wasn't. bought that 2 unit. My wife and I were in it one night. We were on the bottom floor at the time, and we had tenants. It was actually two girls renting, the rooms together. And I remember the first day they actually sent us that payment to the Bank of America. I really want to bring folks in here, like just to this moment. I remember telling my wife, like, oh my goodness, like somebody actually paid us money to, live in our prop. Like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And, I was like, I think we should just do like 3-4 of these. And I don't think we'd have to work ever again. Like just buy like 5 of these things and you're done. So I had that kind of, like smart epiphany. Like you should just keep doing this and you're done. Like you don't need a day job, like we'll be fine, right? But then I did not do that. Because after we bought the 2 unit, I met another partner and he's like, hey, Ola, we could go flip some houses down the street in Baltimore City and we're going to make $50,000, $100,000. Well, knowing somebody like me, I'm like, well, yeah, why would I do the 2 unit 5 times when I can make $50,000 down the street, right? And I think at the time I was watching too much HGTV as well. So there was a bit of a bias then. I was like, yeah, this looks very easy. I could just flip a house, make like $50,000, right? And at the time I joined a mentorship group that John, right? So I already had a mentor, right? I tell you a different story about that. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop this trying to buy a large multifamily. I was already paying this mentor for this. And I was like, I'm going to go flip a house. But actually, I want to really say something quickly, John. So again, you asked the question, how did you kind of go from 2 unit to large multifamily? So I had that epiphany, let's just do more of this. And then we can, just keep growing, right? And I was listening to a podcast just like this one, right? And there was a guy that came on, and he basically at the end said, hey, this was again 6-7 years ago, whatever, 8 years ago, I can't remember now. I'm going to give my number at the end of this, podcast. And he did. And he was like, well, nobody's going to call me anyway. So obviously I'm nobody. So I called him and said, hey.
Nobody called him.
I'm like, remember you said nobody's going to call you? Well, I'm Mr. Nobody. It's like, who is this? I was like, well, again, whatever you're charging to, to have, to make me be your mentee, I cannot afford it. Just give me a payment plan. No.
Hold on.
You did not know the story, John?
I don't even know what you're talking about, but this is just, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
So this is funny just because you're saying, listen, I don't even want to know what you're charging. I just know I can't afford it. So.
I mean, John, this story is so important. You know why? Because I try to pay attention.
Did you really start by saying, hey, man,
100%,
I don't even want to know the price. Just send me a bill every month. And I'll start chipping away at it.
And I will pay it off. You know why I say this? I mean, of course, it sounds really funny and stuff to folks, but I'm saying it because there's somebody out there that's going, well, yeah, this guy said I should go get a mentor because he can afford it. So, well, yeah, that I can't do real estate because I can't. No. That's not what happened, right? So even if you're saying, hey, I'm at ground zero, right? I want to do big things. I want to do real estate, but I can't afford it. That's fine. That's everybody. Dude, that's everybody. That's most people, at least. So that's not your problem. Your problem is not that you don't have the money. Your problem is you are not asking the right questions, right? So if you find a target mentor in your market, some people say like, oh, go ride around with them. I don't want anybody to ride around with me right now. I'm too busy. But negotiate. You charge $10,000. Can you do 5? Can I pay you every month? Right? So that's what I'm trying to bring up from the story, even though it's a very good story, obviously, it's going to go in my book. But people need to know that the hack is in the joke. Don't miss that. So that's what I did anyway. And, I was shocked. And, my mentor said, okay, like I'll spread it over 3 payments or 4 payments, whatever the heck it was, who cares? But I paid it, right? And then that's how I started learning about buying multi-million-dollar properties, right?
Man.
It's as simple as that. Like I'm literally giving whoever is listening to this and wants to listen to this, I'm literally breaking it down Like every objection you're giving me, I'm going to smash it, right? Like these are the things you need to do.
Ola, I love, I love so much of your journey, man, and what you're talking about, because we're always faced with the obstacles that are in our lives. And you talked about, hey, I don't have the money. I already know I can't afford this. But there was something that you heard from that conversation with Joe when he was on that show that made you say, you know what, this is the person I need. I want to go back to that moment because you and I have never talked about this, but the irony is, I think probably around the same time, I was also on a similar path where I started flipping some houses, thought I was going to make all this money. And in my mind, I was savvy enough to know that I was not the flipping expert. So I partnered with the guy who was, and that went disastrously wrong. Just a complete disaster. And that is why I pivoted back to multifamily, because I understood it. It was simple enough where I got it. Still hard to execute, but simple enough in concept, where I wasn't putting all my trust into a contractor to, be on budget and on time. And I know for me, that was kind of the path that I had to go back and kind of yo-yo and come back to. And you mentioned having a mentor at that time when you were getting ready to flip, but then you kind of, came across what Joe was doing. Like, how did you like reconcile all of that to realize that, hey, I've already made an investment. I am on this path to flipping, but I really need to focus on scaling into multifamily as opposed to what you're already doing?
Well, it was kind of like mentally for me at least easier because I already proved that multifamily, which was a duplex at the time, that was what I had, was working because it was. So I was with Joe, kind of going through the course like you probably did as well. So I knew exactly that that's what I wanted to do, but I wasn't patient, right? I mean, I was impatient. I was like, I'm reading about all this, theoretical concept of buying a $10 million deal. Let me go make $50,000 first. Like
Yeah.
this is very key, by the way. We don't have enough time to deconstruct this, but like I talk about this a lot. The subconscious mind, you gotta be aware. I meditate every single day. You gotta be aware because the mind is like, I'm not the one to be buying a $10 million deal. But it's not, obviously, it's not verbalizing it, but it's all going in your head. So I'm like, yeah, let me go with the 50K guy and go flip down the street. Right. So I think that was really what was happening at the time. So I was like, let me go do that while I'm still learning about this 10 million, business that I know I can never probably do anyway. Maybe I can, maybe I don't know. But I think the 50K is feasible. So I'm going to pursue that. But what I did not know was there's a price to pay and there are no discounts. That's one of my favorite quotes in life. There's always a price to pay and there are no discounts. In this particular situation, yes, you're chasing the 50K profit, but you're going to lose out on the $10 million deal you could have done. And that's exactly what happened. It took me 2 years being covered in dust, going to my flip project, not making the 50K. For anybody that is still listening, I did not make the 50K. And I still had to come back, to my cohort in that mentorship group. And they were all buying the $10 million deal I did not prepare for. Right. But it was okay. I was still able to jump on a deal, help out a little bit, and still I was lucky enough for that. But I did lose 2 years regardless on the timeline, right? That was chipped off, and I can't get that again. And that's okay. We are where we are today, and I'm still thankful and grateful for that.
I think there are a couple takeaways from what you said, right? And when I think about the insights there, first of all, is you knew the smaller multifamily worked. So you had conviction there. Where you had hesitation was scaling to the $10 million deal. So that 50K flip felt more feasible to you. It's good to have some wins that you can rely on. And for me, I know it was the same thing, right? I had a 2-unit, a 3-unit, an 8-unit before I really started scaling to syndications. And then I was doing flips as well. And the flips were terrible. But for me, the flips were supposed to generate cash to invest in more multifamily. I lost money in the flip. So it actually set me back even further. But it was a similar thing. So I think where you and I both were aligned is that we knew the multifamily thing worked. We just didn't have all the confidence that we could scale as big as we wanted to, right? And that we saw maybe other folks were doing it. And the insight there is you've got to protect your mind. You've got to feed it. You've got to do these things. And it sounds, I'm not like one of the mindset people who tells you, oh, we got to meditate every day and all those things. And there's nothing wrong if you like that. But I always had a hard time with it, and until I really started to understand how much control and power we have over our thoughts, and how the subconscious will, it will lead you astray if you let it, because it's scared. And the easy thing is just to retreat, right? It's so much easier to not do the $10 million deal where you have nothing at risk than to go out there, put your name on a contract, try to get all the money together. Now you got to operate and execute, right? For a lot of people, if you've got a fear in your back of your head, you've never done this, that little voice is going to be telling you, you can't raise that money. You don't know people with that kind of money. You've never done a deal like this. Do you know how to manage this? Are you going to hire the right person? Remember that flip where you lost money? Are you going to lose money on this project too? Like, all of these negative thoughts start coming up. So you have to really, put yourself in a mental position to understand, one, how to build the confidence; two, how to be resourceful; three, how to leverage other experts in your space and on your team. And we keep talking about Joe, but I had Joe at the Midwest Summit, and he talked about one of his first deals, which was a colossal failure, just complete
Mm-hmm.
failure.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was going through this failure, he got under contract to do another large deal. And I asked him, I said, you owe your investors money. Like, you got this failure. How in the world did you have the confidence to move forward? And the biggest takeaway I got from that conversation, he said, well, I would always ask myself, or he said that he would tell himself in his daily mantras that he was a billionaire real estate investor. And as a billionaire real estate investor, do you not do the next deal because the last deal didn't work? Or do you continue to, to swing? And think about it for sports, right? If you struck out the last time you were at bat, does that mean you're not going to swing the bat this time? If you missed the last shot, does that mean you're not shooting anymore this game? No, you're going to come out there. You're going to keep trying. You're going to keep doing your best, right? You're going to learn from that mistake. You're going to try to make some adjustments so you can win. And I think that's really key. So kudos to you, man, in doing that. I know we spent a lot of time talking about kind of your background and getting started. You're based in Houston today. You've got your construction company. You've got your multifamily projects. There's a lot of misconceptions about the Houston market. Talk to me about the Houston market from your perspective.
So I moved from Baltimore, Maryland to Houston in January 2020. We all know what happened 2 months after that.
Fun times.
20, yeah, best time to have moved.
Yeah. Hope you liked your house, right?
For those still scratching their head, the pandemic. Remember that thing? Yeah. From a multifamily investment perspective, however, I personally love the Houston market. I feel like Houston, for some bizarre reason, I don't have enough history, probably naively, gets a bad rep. Houston gets a bad rep for some weird reason. But Houston is poised to be the third largest city in America. That's a fact. It would overtake Chicago, right? So New York, LA, now it will be Houston. A lot of people live here. Of course, we all associate Houston with oil, but we have the largest medical center in the entire planet Earth. Houston, Texas has the largest medical center in the world. And my wife is a nurse now. There's a lot of sick people, like a lot of sick people. Like, I know, I hear it every night. So there's something to be said for that, right? We are part of the Sun Belt, cities, right, across America. So there's a lot of inward migration, right, into, the city of Houston. I mean, Texas in general, we all know that, but a lot of people do come to Houston. These are the reasons why I love Houston. Of course, we had, Harvey. That was a few years before I moved here. So that was a big hit on the city. But, as we know, we build quickly. I love the Houston market. Dallas and Austin are also great markets, but they're just 3-4 hours away. So there is a proximity effect that cannot be taken away from a geographical perspective. They're trying to build a train between the cities right now, high-speed rail. So just kind of just understanding that really helped me to make that decision. So far, so good for us in Houston, even from the construction side as well. It's just a no-brainer that I'm gonna live the rest of my life here in Houston. That's how much I love it. So interestingly, I actually like the fact that people don't want to invest in Houston. Like when I go to those conferences and they're like, "Oh, Houston," I'm like, "Thank you. Please don't come." Do not bring your institutional capital and jack up the prices. Like, so I actually don't mind that. I always laugh when I hear those things. Now, the question is that just, stage talk? Is that just hearsay? Or is there some real, factual, statements? Yeah. Do we have high insurance? Well, yeah, we had Hurricane Harvey. Yeah, the insurance carriers want to mitigate their risk, therefore drive up the cost of insurance. That's what any smart business, institution would do. That's what they're doing. So yes, we have higher interest, yes, because we're close-ish to the water. But do we have people running around going to work and back every day? Best believe it. Do we have the best food? Probably in Texas. Better believe it. Do we have all these other things I mentioned? Yes, it's right there, out there. So that is enough for us to put a bet. I'm bullish on this market, and we have no interest to convince the institutional capital. We have a vested interest to educate our investors, our LP investors, about what this market has to offer. But we're not going on the mountaintop and trying to get BlackRock in here with all their billions. No, we're not. Personally, at a small level, we're not trying to do that.
Well, I think what stands out to me is that you're local, right? So because you live there, you're going to know the market better than most people. When I lived in Chicago, we heard similar things, right? People didn't want to invest in Chicago. And I understand why, right? There's some political things. There's other reasons why, taxes, all this kind of stuff. But the truth is, if you're local, you understand kind of where those sub-markets are, the pockets. You understand how to find opportunities that some of the national guys can't find, right? You can't just look at your population list, find a property, put it on a map and say, okay, this should work, especially if you're buying in bulk, because it just doesn't work that way. You really have to understand you want to be in this school district, not that school district. You want to be on this side of the street. You want to be on this side of the highway. And if you don't understand that market that way, it's going to be tough for out-of-towners to invest. And I think that's one of the reasons you hear people who are down on Houston is they don't know the market like that. They invest in different asset types where it just doesn't fit their strategy, right? And I see the same thing when people invest in Chicago, where they want to come in and, in Dallas, they just take an approach and, okay, cool, it's property in Dallas, whatever. And maybe they don't understand the nuances, or they don't want to be bothered with the nuances of understanding how to take the next step in market research to understand why, just because, this property is in Houston doesn't mean it's going to appreciate the same as that property, which is maybe a mile down the road. And I think that's the part that people have a hard time with. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, man. Well, and it's not to say Houston's perfect market. You mentioned, the reliance on oil and gas. I know there are other industries that are there. So we just implore people to do their own homework. But there's always opportunities, especially if there are people who are not investing in what will be the third largest city in the United States. Ola, great talking to you, man. I always feel like we run out of time, but it was a great time with you today. If folks want to check you out, they can go to Dwellynn.com. Right now, we're going to go to our round of insights. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
That's a good one. I wasn't expecting that question. I think I talked about it, so I'll be quick. Definitely going into flipping, not really understanding my temperament. So now I understand my temperament. I'm like a perfectionist, so I was actually driving my my general contractor, my subs insane. Like, hey, you can't paint this way. So that I'm just not a flipper, right? I'm a strategist, right? I like complex, big, difficult things, right? So I think understanding that, kind of helps me now when I'm trying to take on new projects.
Give me a digital or a mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Notion. Use Notion quite a bit. Love Notion. Yeah, I have a ton, but Notion is the one that comes to mind.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Oh, I mean, this is easy. What It Takes. I think it's by the founder of Steven Schwarzman. I can't never say his last name properly. But it's called What It Takes. Of course, please reach out for that.
Yep. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I mean, you mentioned Joe reading his things in the morning, like 100% meditation. I'm that guy that talks about mindset all day. I'm the guy. Meditation completely changed my life. Meditation completely changed my life. I use the temp. I never pay for anything like Spotify, those things. I don't pay. But I pay for a meditation app, and it's $100 a year, John. Can you believe that? But I would not pay $4 for Spotify or anything else. It's called 10% Happier on the App Store.
I love it. All right, give me your number one insight for scaling a multifamily portfolio.
Partnerships. Find people that can do the things that you cannot. And best to believe there's a lot of things that you cannot do.
All right. We talked about Houston. You talked about the food in Houston. So give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh man, I don't want people to come there and make it too packed. I'm joking. It's called Urban Thai Kitchen. Love Thai food. I've been to Thailand a couple of times. That place is like you get teleported to Thailand. Urban Thai Kitchen.
All right, well, put that on the list, man. Next summer in Houston, we should meet up there for sure. Ola, pleasure talking to you today, man. Love hearing a little bit more about your story. I'm very familiar with you, and we obviously talk more, but I learned a lot about your journey today as well. So I appreciate you sharing a lot of that. A couple of takeaways for me is one, just, be open to opportunities, that flight you took to Dubai to talk with your friend and consult him on his business, that opened up your eyes to a whole other world and obviously led you down some different pathways. Reaching out to that podcast guest and calling him and saying, hey, yes, like I'm interested, taking action there, as well as realizing that, what, the flipping thing, not what I want to do. It's not the right fit. Let me go back to focusing on multifamily. I think taking action is really key. And you embodied that throughout, your career here as an investor. For folks who want to learn more about you, they can go to dwellynn.com. And I would really encourage you to reach out, just like, Ola talked about. If you hear a story, you hear something that connects with you, something that resonates, reach out. Like, don't worry about, bothering somebody or any of that things. Like, we're doing these shows to connect with people. And it's great to hear from those individuals who got value from the conversation. So feel free to reach out to dwellynn.com and drop a note and just say, hey, appreciate your podcast, or leave us a rating and review and just say, hey, really, really enjoyed that interview with Ola, right? So let us know that you got value from this show. Ola, I just want to thank you again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you and hope you have a great day.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you, sir.